If I take this very book, the very book that you have here as the Quran, if I copy paste all of it, but change the name of your prophet, from Muhammad to, let's say, Samson, would you agree with that book? Because it will make exactly the same sense. Would you agree with that book? Following this book is irrational, not to be done by anyone sensible like you. Point number one, most of what you know about the history of this book comes from about 200 odd years later. If I were you, I wouldn't want to follow a book about which we haven't got a clue. Are you making noise again? This guy is making a noise again. Are you willing to answer some questions? Clearly. So you're willing only to give words of wisdom.
It's 1,400 years ago.
Yeah, once. Let me. Sorry, apologies. I got distracted a little bit.
No, it's not this.
Four specific
we are
points.
Discussing.
He doesn't discuss. You are here to discuss. I'm happy. Okay. Point number one. The earliest of sources of information corresponding to this comes from 200 odd years later.
No, that's not.
Point number. Respond to me one by one after I finish, please. Yeah. Point number two. There is no evidence that you can provide to me. Please challenge me if you want. That even those resources were widely circulated and therefore were critically attested during the time of their writing. There is no information. You can challenge me. Okay. Point number three.
Point by point. I forgot the first point.
I'll repeat the point again. But
No,
quick summary first. Point number three is those later sources anyway contradict themselves. Self-contradictory. Point number three. Point number four. Those later sources contradict earlier artifacts, known earlier artifacts. For example, well, maybe I'll get to the examples later. 4 specific points that I'm making today about the Quran. About the preservation of the Quran, I'll come later. But 4 specific points about the historicity of this book. Now, one by one, right now. The earliest of information that gives you details about the history of this book comes from 200 odd years after.
How did you know that?
Well, you tell me otherwise. Are you a Sunni Muslim?
I'm Muslim, but not Sunni.
A Shia Muslim?
No, another.
Another one, okay.
Yeah.
Do you go with the hadiths?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So, essentially, Sahih al-Bukhari, the earliest of the 6 canonical hadith sources, i.e. hadith sources agreed by the Ummah, the earliest of them was written 200 plus years after Muhammad's passing away. I'm assuming, you assume that all of this was given or revealed before Muhammad passed away. In other words, between the time of the revelation and the time of the first book that gives you details about this, at least 200 years later.
Okay, I will give you one response, okay? So this is the Quran, right?
Yeah.
It came from the God, from Allah.
I don't have a clue.
1,440 years ago. And it was given to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And then it was not given like one piece. It was given ayah by ayah or 2 ayahs or surah. So the Prophet Muhammad tells some Sahaba, maybe 2 or 3 of them, and they collect it firstly in their mind. And many of them was written in pieces in that time, maybe in skin of animal like that, okay, and wood. So then after that, I think on Abu Bakr, Uthman, it was all collected together and confirmed by strict rules and collected in one book.
Good.
And here it is.
Good. Nice. I like your story. What I like. Are you done?
It was proven historically in even non-Muslim sources. So I came here to visit London. So I'm not coming with research and
that's fine.
citation or like
that's
you.
fine.
So you are prepared. But for me, in my knowledge, I believe in it strongly.
Good.
And I am sure about it.
Good. Thank you. I really respect you. At least you are engaged.
Respect you, of course.
That's very good. Now, I like your story. Now, you've given me. No, one second. You've given me a storyline. For me to take that as fact, you need to back up your story with evidence. Please answer me a simple question. One second. Please answer me a simple question. The story that you gave me, where do you get the information for that story?
You can find it in any historical
Where?
source.
Which one? Which one?
I told you I'm here. I just visited London for fun, and I'm not prepared with researches and sources.
Would you like to know where you get your story from?
You can search even. I heard non-Muslim.
No.
sources
I
that
have
talk about
searched.
it.
I have searched. I do my research. I put stuff together. No problem. I do my research. My question to you is, if you do not know where you get information for your story, would you like to know?
Like what?
No. Would you like to know where you get your story from?
I know.
Like where? Where did you know from?
I believe in this. So, for example, what are you? What's your religion?
I am a Christian.
Okay. So, how many like وش نسميه بالإنجليزي؟
66
copies. How many copies of Bible do you have?
Well, I am at home. I have.
Many. But Quran is the same in Morocco, in Oman, in Kuwait.
Is this a joke or
all-
what? Is this
No.
a joke?
What does that mean?
Is this a
that
joke?
means that it's all the same.
No, is
There
this
no
a joke?
Differences.
This is absolute gibberish nonsense. Have you heard? Have you heard of the word kiraat?
No.
You haven't?
No.
Are you sure?
Qira'at.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pronunciation.
Ah, are you sure?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, when you go home, read about the different kiraats. The difference between them is not just pronunciation. If you think the difference between kiraats is pronunciation, you're as bad as things could get. Now,
It's
let's come back.
even
Let's
if
come
you
back.
know about it.
Let's
Even
come
if
back.
it's one letter.
You tell me what do you know
Let's
about it?
no, one second. Let's come back. Let's come back.
Answer this question.
Let's
please. You
no.
tell us.
Let's come back to. Let's come
Answer
back.
him.
No,
Answer the
Let's come back.
question,
Let's come back
Tell
to
me.
the earlier point that I was trying to make. My question is, where do you get information from? I asked you that question. You said this is what you firmly believe in. Now, of course,
from history books in that time.
Which history books?
I can't give you titles of books.
would you like to know?
Yeah, why not?
Well, the earliest of information about the Quran you get from the Seerah literature, the Hadith literature, and so on. Those are the things you put together to understand the historical backdrop for the Quran.
No, the Hadith was collected after that. The Quran
Exactly.
was away before that.
That's exactly my point. The
Yeah,
Hadiths
and
were written later on. That's my point.
The Hadith is different and the Quran is different.
That's exactly my point. But
And then?
my point, my point. Excuse me, sir. We're talking about the Quran. Have you got any point about the Quran, sir?
You're not Muslim. Why are you so
Have-
obsessed with us Muslims?
Excuse me, sir. Are you a Muslim, sir?
Yes, I am.
You are. Okay. Please answer my question, sir. Now, the point simply is, if you believe in Abu Bakr, don't you?
Yeah, of
in a
course.
person called Abu Bakr. Can you find any information about Abu Bakr in the Quran?
There is no Abu Bakr written in name.
Good. There's no information about.
And we don't need that.
No. I'm asking.
It's-
Please stick to my question.
Yeah.
So there's no information about Abu Bakr in the Quran. Yeah. There's no information about Uthman. Is there any information in the Quran?
Man,
Campaigners. We call them campaigners of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
That's fine. But the question is, I'm not asking how much you like them, how you call them, and so on. I'm asking you, is there any information about them in the Quran? The answer is a simple no.
So what do you want to know by asking
My,
this question? What's your
exactly.
point? What's your point?
The simple point I want to assert is, reading the Quran, you couldn't get any clue about the historical backdrop
So
in which the Quran is written.
In the Quran, when you come back to Islam and Muslims, you find millions Muslims memorize the Quran fully.
Nothing
right?
to do with what I'm talking about.
Let me tell you something.
I'm, no,
You're talking about the chronological.
I am talking about the
Quran,
historical veracity.
Yeah. From the
Whether
the-
millions of people memorized a
after
fantasy
Rasul
story, I
sallallahu
couldn't
alaihi
care less
after
right now.
Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam who asked the Sahaba to memorize the Quran.
Which Sahabas?
And
Which Sahabas did Muhammad ask to memorize?
Sahabas Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all of them.
Which
all of
ones?
them-
Which
all of them
ones?
memorize. Talking not necessarily one. All of them
Which ones?
memorize.
Name a few.
Abu Bakr, Uthman bin
Okay, so
Affan.
how do you know Muhammad
Let me-
asked Abu Bakr to memorize the Quran? How do you know?
What you asked him before about the memorization of the Quran.
I didn't ask about memorization of the Quran
You
at
said-
all.
You said the Quran and the historical of the Quran from there until now, and you see now there is a book here.
No,
So if you- if
You've
you compare-
misunderstood.
if you compare the
One
Quran-
second, sorry.
Let me-
I
let me-
asked about the historical context. I'm not asking you about the history of the copy here. Historical context. In other words, when you read Surah Al-Baqarah or when you read Surah Al-Fatiha, my question is, how do you know in what background was it written? And for that information, the historical backdrop, the historical context, to understand that kind of information, you need to go outside of the Quran, because the Quran itself does not provide any historical context, is my point. You understand me so far? The Quran doesn't tell you anything about Abu Bakr. The Quran doesn't tell you anything about Umar. Quran doesn't tell anything about Ali and so on. None of these people are there in the Bible, in the Quran.
Look, when you want to talk about the Hadith.
Exactly.
The Hadith, that's what
My
I want to-
point. One
right.
second. In other words, did you hear what he said?
Hadith-
Just one second.
Hadith Rasul
Just one
sallallahu
second. Just one second. Did you hear what he said?
Yeah,
So
I
when I
said-
ask about the historical context, he clearly understands that you need to go to the hadiths. Did he catch the point?
The main hadith is the
And
Quran.
what is the earliest of the canonical hadith sources that you have?
We don't need this.
Firstly, it was
One-
Let's finish. Let's finish this.
Well, just one
conversation
question to
very
you,
quickly.
sir.
Yeah,
One question, sir.
Yeah.
So you understand, to understand that historical backdrop of the Quran, you need to go to the hadiths. My question to you is, what is the earliest of the canonical hadith sources that you have?
No. Quran is itself is let's say independence itself. Quran is Quran.
Well,
And
what are you
hadith
talking
is the-
about?
Hadith is the word of Rasul, is the Prophet.
You don't
Hadith
need-
is the word of the Prophet. Quran is the word of God. Now,
No.
we don't need Hadith.
You're giving me your belief statements right now. I'm not asking you for your belief statements.
wait.
I'm trying to
No.
analyze this in a
You are
historical
asking
manner.
about Abu Bakr, about Uthman.
Exactly.
You don't need to go to heaven. You don't need to know them. You need to do
What?
arkan
Hey,
Islam.
wow.
Hold on,
No, wait. No, you're confusing me right now. You're confusing me right now. No.
Because you
My
are
confusion.
trying to
My
give us
confusion.
different questions at the same time.
No, one second. My point to you is, would you like to know, if you need to go to, you understand there are multiple religions today on the face of the earth, don't you?
Yeah.
There is Christianity, which doesn't have Abu Bakr, no Umar, no Uthman, none of these people. There is Islam, which has Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and so
Yeah.
on. Now you are telling me to go to heaven, you don't need to know about Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman.
You don't need.
But if I were to tell you that Abu
If you
Bakr,
want to learn about Islam, you have to know.
let me
But-
finish.
But if
Let me
you want
finish.
to be
Let
good-
me finish.
Okay, finish.
If I were to tell you that the entire idea of Islam is a fantasy story, that none of these people actually existed, wouldn't you want to know that if that is true or not?
It's
If
definitely
Islam
not
is a
true.
fantasy, could you go to heaven with Islam?
Yes, of course.
If Islam is a fantasy, could Islam help you go to heaven?
No,
In your
that's
point
a
of
wrong
view-
question.
No.
in your point of
Answer
view,
me.
the Bible-
Answer me.
Let me ask you.
Answer me.
Let me answer you. Let me answer you.
And his in proves that they
No,
are,
my-
don't exist.
Hold on.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't even.
But, hold on.
Yeah.
So now stick to my question, please.
Yeah.
If Islam is a fantasy, that's a huge if,
What do you mean by fantasy?
i.e. fiction, i.e. not historical, i.e. Muhammad,
we never
no
said
one,
historical.
let me finish please, let me finish. If these things are not true at all, if Muhammad, for example, didn't exist, Muhammad of Islam didn't exist at all, if Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman didn't exist at all, then clearly Islam is a fantasy idea, which means Islam could not help you go to heaven, could
There's
it?
no connection with
And
that.
the Bible.
Could-
You tell me, who
It's
started
like-
it?
Could
it's
fantasy
like-
ideas,
Can you tell me
one
who's-
second,
it's
could,
fantasy.
It's
could
like-
fantasy
I will
ideas,
tell you. It's
Who
like
came- who came-
it's
could
like-
fantasy
up with that?
I will
ideas,
answer you.
Good.
It's like if you ask if I am as a human body is not here, is not exist,
are you
do we
talking
need to drink water? It's the same. Water is essential for us as human, and Quran is essential for us
Who
as
told you?
as
Who,
Muslims.
if this is the word of God,
The difference.
This is the word.
how do you know it? Is the question.
Difference.
We know
I'm
it
ask-
from generation to
How?
generation.
You saying it's
Now, the
fantasy.
first few generations I can't see at all. So I'm asking you, the first, how do you know anything about the origin The history of the origin of the Quran. That's my question. You're talking about generations as if you know who wrote the Quran down, when it was written down, and who the Sahabas were and so on. My question is, how do you know these things?
Because in our books it's written exactly.
Which books?
Where from our Islamic books.
Which
this
books?
question, hold on. This question,
Which books?
how could ask the same question to the Bible?
I'm sure. I'm
Hold on a minute,
talking about the Quran right
I
now.
would ask you the same question to the Bible.
Absolutely.
All right. In the Bible, how do you think this is 100% sure? In one thing, I'm going to answer this question.
Good
The
question.
one-
I'd like to answer now.
Right. Yeah,
Well, could
okay.
I answer?
You can.
Good. So, Jesus and the crucifixion of Jesus is that particular, the person of Jesus and the crucifixion of Jesus is a well attested historical fact, attested by contemporary historical sources, namely Matthew, the Christian sources, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and so on. These are Christian sources. There are not, no, one second. Let me finish.
They were eyewitness.
Can I finish?
Okay.
There are non-Christian historical resources also, like the Roman non-Christian historian, namely Tacitus, Suetonius, Pliny the Younger, the Greek non-Christian writer, namely Lucian of Samosata. That's a Jewish non-Christian writer, namely Josephus. All these people write about the historicity of Jesus Christ, the historicity of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. In other words, the person of Jesus Christ is firmly fixed in history. In other words, if you were to come to me and ask me for early evidence of the person of Jesus Christ, I could not alone give you Bible, I could also give you non-biblical, non-Christian resources. I'm asking the same question. That is exactly what I'm asking. For the Quran.
Okay, I will tell you.
One second. For people like Abu Bakr, Uthman, Umar, to understand the historical backdrop of when this book was written, in what context and so on, what are the historical resources you are going to cite? That's my question. You
Okay.
haven't answered me so far.
I have told you already. So you are already here and you know the books, the resources with the names. We have even non-Muslims books sources,
Which ones?
but we don't know the names. Can you name
Which
some?
ones?
There are many.
Non-Muslim, non-Islamic sources which
non-Muslim
record
people
Abu
with
Bakr,
non-Muslim
Uthman, Umar.
There is many.
You mean the combiners?
Yeah, non-Muslim source. He thinks there are non-Islamic sources which record the historicity of the Sahaba. He thinks so. I'm asking you, do you know any of them? He doesn't know. You don't know. Is there anyone who knows anything?
Knows about what?
Knows about the origin of Islam.
The origin of Islam?
That's right. Origin of the Quran. To understand the historical backdrop of the way in which the Quran was written, do you have any historical resource? Early historical resource? Anyone? Sorry, apologies.
I cannot understand the question.
Okay, so I was trying to explain. So for example, about you, what's your name? To understand about Ahmed, who lives in 2023, I can ask Ahmed's friends. Are you friends? Brothers, yeah? Brothers? You look similar.
yes.
Brothers, so I can ask your older brother, younger brother. I can ask your older brother, please can you tell me a few things about Ahmed, yeah? Because you have shared your life with him.
Yeah, of
Contemporary
course,
sources,
you,
yeah?
you can if you ask someone who read about the books, he will tell you the names.
Exactly.
Tell you everything.
Please, exactly my point.
But for
Ahmed,
now, you have just read, like, if you
My
ask
point to you,
someone
what's
who
your
is-
name, my
who is
friend?
if you ask someone who studied Islam and studied other resources or write Islam, who will answer you and he will tell you and you will never be able to.
good. What's your name?
Ahmed.
You are Ahmed also,
yeah.
both Ahmeds?
Yeah.
Ahmed, when you go home, take this as a homework. I'm Arul, my name is Arul, by the way. The challenge is this. The earliest of historical information, most of what Islam understands about the Quran comes not from the time of the Quran. This is a fact. You can go ask your Islamic sources. Or when you go home, ask. All that they would tell you are fantasy ideas. They
Of
want.
course we will found.
Ahmad,
Whenever I
Well,
found,
let me finish. Good.
yeah,
Let me finish this. Ask them if they may give you, someone knows someone else. Ask them what book. What resource?
You can't go and ask him. He's over there.
Well, I tried asking him, he ran
Yeah,
away.
yeah, he's over
He
there.
ran away.
You can't ask him.
He ran away. When I went,
I
he
don't
ran
think
away.
so. I
You
don't
know
think
why? No, this is a fact,
I don't
Ahmed.
think so.
Ahmed, I understand you perfectly. You may think Islam has legs to stand on, but I really am contradicting. So when you go home, ask your sheikh, ask leaders in your.
Of course.
Please do. And if they even remotely give you a resource, ask them what is that resource. Is that a book that you can read today? Ask them, okay? Because all that they would tell you is give you later source and tell you about fantasy sources from the past. They will say, oh, A and B existed. Ask for evidence, any information, any resource they give.
There is a lot of evidence in Quran.
There is no evidence whatsoever is my challenge. So have you got?
I don't need historical evidence. If he was saying,
There we go. No. One second. Note this carefully. I do not need historical evidence, he says.
yeah, because I only judge what he says.
Yes.
You see what the problem is?
I don't need.
Exactly. They do not. Excuse me, my dear friend. Let me put it this way. Yeah. Today, unfortunately for you, fortunately, still, there are competing views on God. I am a Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ. And Christianity, as you might know, is also... Doesn't make sense, you think. The point simply is this. When you have competing views on God, you better examine if the view that you currently hold is historically valid or not. You better
I need
explore.
to examine if it makes sense or not, if it's logical or not.
What do you mean
If it's
logical?
lies
What
or
are you
not.
talking about?
Okay,
So if it is
it's
Harry Potter lie,
wait.
okay, let me put it this way.
Historical proof that there's someone called Muhammad, he has Quran, but the book doesn't make sense.
Let me put it this way.
What's
your name?
What difference does it make?
What's your name?
Mahmoud.
Mahmoud, let me ask you this is a simple experiment, okay? If I take this very book, the very book that you have here as the Quran, if I copy paste all of it, but change the name of your prophet from Muhammad to, let's say, Samson, would you agree with that book? Because it will make exactly the same sense. Would you agree with that book?
How come?
Why not? Well, because you earlier said all that you care about in a book is if it makes sense.
Yeah.
My point is,
That's the
if
first
I take the exact copy of this book, one second. If I take the exact copy of this book, change the name of Muhammad to Samson, the meaning hasn't changed
Well, you changed it.
at all.
You changed the name. You changed
Well, I've changed the
something.
Quran, I agree,
exactly.
but the
You cannot
meaning,
change
the
the Quran.
sense,
Yeah, but
I haven't
what-
changed.
yeah, but what comes
So the
first?
question
What
is,
comes first?
the question is,
What comes
would
first?
you
No,
consider
the
that to
answer
be
is-
reliable?
What is different
The answer is
for you?
what comes
What's different
first?
for you?
First, I need to read the book, see if it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
If I believe in it or not.
Yeah.
And then I can back up that with the historical.
Ah, nice. So at some stage, you need to get to history.
Yeah.
At some stage.
Yeah.
And that is what I'm asking you right now. How long in your life have you been reading the Quran?
My life.
All your life. How old are you? 30 odd?
More.
40 odd, yeah. For great catching up. Ahmed brothers, great catching up, yeah. For 40 odd years you've been reading this. So if you've been reading this for too long, you said you would do two things. One is trying to make sense. So a few minutes please. One is trying to see if this makes sense, and the other is trying to find the historicity of this. My point is, for 40 odd years you have been reading this. So too long you have been reading this. You are saying you're happy with the sense.
Get to the point.
Now get to the historicity. It is time to ask the question, if the stories you hear about this book are real history or not. It's time for you to ask those serious questions.
Say again.
You were...
This is the source itself.
That's not true.
Let me
Okay,
finish, let me
if
finish
this
that.
is the source...
Let me finish it. Let me
Okay,
finish
okay,
it.
go on.
This is the source itself. This is the source of Islam. Right. When Muhammad, peace be upon him, passed away, Sahaba, Uthman bin Affan, who decided to write the book. Well, then, why no changes in the book? What the God sent to Muhammad, peace be upon him? Because in that time, all Sahaba memorized fully the book. Every single letter, every single dot or point in the book, they memorize it. Means through that time, millions millions Muslims memorize the same book, the same letter, the same word. Nothing changes at all.
Good.
Comparing to Bible. Now, if in this corner,
We'll find,
Muslims,
like, 4
at
copies
least,
of
let me finish off. At least Muslims here, at least 20% of them memorize the book. Let's say 10-20% memorize the whole book.
Good.
Now, through that time, 40 centuries ago till now, millions people memorize the same book, but comparing to other Bibles, no.
You have made-
At least you will never ever find one person, Christian, who memorize the book from the history, the old book or the new book.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
No, don't move on. Please stay here. Please stay here. It's very important. You made an important point. No, wait, please. Well, no, please wait. Okay, you are here. That's good. So, wait. He made a very important point. Unfortunately, though, after making the point, he moved away. He made 2 major points. Point number one.
I'm going.
But please wait. This is very important.
No, my train is going now.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, bye.
Good. Great catch.
Subscribe, like.
Okay, subscribe, like, that's good. So there are 2 major points that he made. Point number 1 is that he understands that Uthman put this together and so on. In other words, he was making some comments about the history behind how the text was.
What's your point?
That's exactly what I'm talking about right now.
We don't need to repeat it.
Okay. So in response to that, my point is that is a claim about the history of this book. He doesn't find information about Uthman here. He clearly is claiming something which is not in the Quran, which is outside of the Quran.
Other sources.
And therefore, I would like to know which other sources is he using? Are they qualified? Are they contemporary to the Quran, or are they later sources? 200 years later is what he quoted. Uthmanic recension information he gets from Sahih al-Bukhari. That comes 200 plus years later. In other words,
hundreds of books about Sahih al-Bukhari.
Hundreds of what?
Yeah, there's a lot of books talks about the historical.
Before Sahih
events
al-Bukhari?
about-
Which ones?
Muwatta.
Muwatta?
Yeah. That was
Muwatta,
before him.
Muwatta, does it talk about Uthmanic recension?
Yeah, that's a book of Hadith before Bukhari.
No, but Muwatta, does it talk about Uthmanic recension?
You asked about a book that before Sahih Bukhari.
I'm asking you about the historical information he's giving.
It doesn't mention Osman.
Which one? Please get me reference. Muwatta about Uthmanic recension.
Yeah, because
Please.
It's a book.
I know.
And he mentioned lots of Sahaba.
But
Umar
mention-
ibn Khattab, Abu Bakr, all of them.
But please show
the
me
first
where it
century.
talks about Uthmanic recension. Muwatta,
Why-
Al-Maliki.
So-
Please show me.
So if I showed you it talks about Umar ibn Khattab, you're not going to accept it. It has to be Osman.
No, I am asking about the historical backdrop.
I didn't have the book with me.
But you're making a point. Okay, so that's fine.
I don't
That's
have
fine.
the book. I was
That's
telling
fine.
you,
When you go
there were
home,
books.
could you please explore if Muwatta al-Maliki talks about Uthmanic recension? Please check that for yourself. It would
It's
not.
specifically Osman.
Yeah, because I was asking about the historical backdrop of how this book was put together.
So if he's talking about Abu Bakr,
Yeah, Al-Bakr. Yeah, please.
If that
About
applies-
any information about
Abu
how the.
Hurairah, if he's mentioned all of these people, would you accept it?
I'm asking how. I'm asking,
Trying
please.
to follow your point. What do you want to say?
If the history of this book called the Quran,
Yeah.
how was this put together? By whom? And
What do
so
you mean
on.
the history of the book.
Any book has a history. If I ask you, you tell me, well, Muhammad, this was revealed to Muhammad and this was written down by so and so and so. You're telling me all sorts of stories about this book as to how this was put together. I'm asking you, that is what I would call history, if it is true. So I'm asking, what information are you using to give that storyline? And for that, my challenge to you is Sahih al-Bukhari, Muwatta doesn't mention. Muwatta al-Maliki doesn't talk about Uthmanic recension, which is an important historical point. So that's, I made my point clear now. When you go home, I understand you are saying you don't have access to Muwatta al-Maliki. Fine. When you go home, please check it up. And I've seen you in the past also. So if you
So
anywhere...
you're telling me I'm not going to find any book that's telling me how that book been put together.
Uthmanic recension, Abu
I'm
Bakr's
asking you,
recension.
I'm asking you that you saying there is no book, historical book, mentioning how this book is being put together.
In my knowledge, before
No.
Al-Bukhari, Uthmanic recension in terms of Uthmanic recension being mentioned, Muwatta al-Maliki is not one of them.
So you're
that's my
saying
point.
before Sahih Bukhari, there was no book that's mentioned how this Quran being put together, and there's no mention of Osman or
Mentioning-
Abu Bakr or all this historical
Not the people, but the event. Uthmanic recension, Uthmanic standardization of Uthman.
Yeah.
I'm talking about that right now.
But what I'm saying is just like the Arab idea of passing information was never by writing it.
Okay, so that was
that's how it was. Like for now, there is millions of people they've been taught to memorize it and
Good.
to get the license.
That was his second
And
major
the
point.
chain, and the chain is only about 40 people.
good. So
when
that
he
was
gets
the
the
second
license,
point.
he can trace that chain from now until 1400 years ago. And it was like, if you I think it's going to be too many people. It's not. It's only about 40 people that change.
40 people. That's okay.
Yeah,
I'll
40 people. I
okay.
can show
I'll
you.
come. Okay.
I can
One
show you in the back of the Quran.
Okay, one second. So that was the second major point. So now I'd like to deal with that. So the second major point is somehow, apparently, the Quran is magnificently preserved. That is the second major point. And for that, like you claimed, he also claimed, of course, that the Quran was memorized big time. And like you said, with the Arabs, that's what they did. Now, I'd like to find out if that is true or not. Because if that is not true, clearly Quran falls apart again. So I'd like to find out. When I read through Sahih al-Bukhari, what I find is actually, number one, Muhammad himself could not remember the Quran. I can show you resources. I can show you Sahih al-Bukhari himself saying that. One second. But Sahih al-Bukhari says Muhammad himself forgot portions of the Quran which he had to be reminded of by some other third party, unknown, not even mentioned by name. Okay, we'll go through that first. Okay. So Sahih al-Bukhari 5037. Or maybe better is 5038.
Which one is it?
This one, Sahih al-Bukhari 5038. By the way, this is from sunnah.com, an Islamic resource. Can you please read that aloud for me?
Let me check that.
Please do. Sunnah.com, or if you have your own hadith, Sahih al-Bukhari, please do. 5038.
Yeah, but that number comes out with a different one.
I don't know how the numbering with that works.
5038.
So that's okay. So if you, but do you know about sunnah.com? So of course you have different ways of referencing this. So I don't know what particular resource you're using. This is Hadith 62 from book 66. Do you have sunnah.com? Book 66, Hadith 62. Volume 6, book 61, Hadith 558.
But that thing
Did you read?
is very contradiction. It's just like, why do you use Sahih if Sahih al-Bukhari, he's a Muslim, and he mentions such a thing in his book, why do you use it if you don't even believe in the book? That is
Oh no,
my book.
what I am saying is, that's
But why do you use it?
good. You're asking me, I'm answering right now. What I am saying is,
I'm listening to you.
yeah, what I am saying is, if someone stands up and says that he is a liar, he has to be a liar. Because if he was a truth teller,
Sahih al-Bukhari, was he Muslim or not?
well, I don't even know if he existed or not. I don't even know if he existed or not. What I am saying
so
is,
using something from a book that you're not even sure if that book is right or the person who wrote it exists or not.
okay,
Doesn't make any sense.
let me ask you this. Yeah. If you were to show something like that to me and say this is a mobile phone, yeah, and let's say I don't believe in that. I look at that and think I don't have reasons to think this is a mobile phone. Do you mind if I, for a second, if you give that to me? Can I take that and say, well, wait a second, you can't even ring anyone from here, so clearly it's not a mobile phone. Can I do that? Demonstrate like that to you? If you claim this is a mobile phone, if I have reasons to think that it is not, can I use the device? No, one second. You need to stick to sensible response right now. If you were to claim that this is a mobile phone, and if I look at it and think, oh, it doesn't look like a mobile phone, can I take it, use it and say, well, actually, clearly, you can't even ring anyone from here, and therefore it is not a mobile phone. Can I do something like that? No, please answer me. Please answer me. Can I do something like that?
It has nothing to do
No,
with
no,
what I'm
but
saying.
please answer me.
I'm
Can
not
I
answering.
do?
It has nothing to do with what I'm saying.
Can I do something like
It has
that?
nothing to do with what I'm
Can I
asking.
do something like
It
that?
has nothing to do with what I'm asking.
You are
can
giving
answer.
me, you, not you, the Muslims are giving me Sahih al-Bukhari, like how you give a mobile phone to me, and they are claiming that this is history. I am reading through it and I am finding plenty of holes in that book, and therefore I am claiming, reading through that book, I am claiming this cannot be history.
Okay.
Yeah. My point simply is Sahih al-Bukhari 5038, if you go to sunnah.com, the reference that uses clearly tells us that Muhammad forgot his Quran.
Yeah,
It's
but
not just that. It's not just that. Sahih al-Bukhari 5039 says that it's not just that Muhammad forgot, he also thinks others could forget. And in both cases, 5038, 5039, he says, Allah makes you forget. So 5038, it says, which I was caused to forget. 5039, narrated Abdullah, the Prophet said, why does any one of the people say, I have forgotten such and such verses of the Quran? He in fact is caused by Allah to forget. In other words, that's point number one. According to Muhammad himself, he himself forgets. Do you think any Muslim during his time could have been better than him?
do you think a liar person will admit such a thing?
What's that?
If he's a liar person,
If he's a
will he
liar.
admit? Yeah, if he's a liar.
I don't-
I've never seen any liar. He called himself a liar.
Okay.
If he's a liar, why would he say such a thing?
My dear friend,
You asked- you
I'm
told-
answering.
you answered.
I'm answering, please wait. I'm answering. When I explore history, like what you said you would do later, when I actually explore history, I have no reason to think that the Muhammad of Islam ever existed. I have every reason to think he could not have existed. This is what this is what I sincerely think, going through historical resources. Now I can show you evidence for that later, but not today, not right now. But if you want to do a live stream or something, I can show you evidence. The other evidence, Islamic evidence, I can show you on early evidence from Muslim heartland. I can show you to suggest that Muhammad. I have reasons.
Saying Muhammad doesn't exist.
I have
Islamic
reasons.
reference saying Muhammad doesn't exist.
Early evidence from Hijazi area, early archaeological evidence that we can use from early supposed Islamic period that helps us understand that Muhammad of Islam could not have existed.
I think there was one historical person, was like a priest, I think of Jerusalem, and one of his messages he mentioned the Prophet Muhammad.
No one from Jerusalem does that.
No, I can.
That's not true.
I can
Find out.
Google it. I can
Please,
Google it for
please
you.
find
I'll
out.
give it to you next time.
Okay, good. Find out
he
and
mentioned,
maybe.
that he mentioned.
Yeah, but note carefully. What I am talking about is Muhammad of Islam.
Okay, but so Umar ibn Khattab doesn't exist as well. Umar doesn't exist.
Well, what
I'm asking you, did Umar ibn Khattab exist?
what I can say is this.
I'm asking you a question.
I'm answering. Umar of Islam, i.e., a person named Umar who claimed to be a caliph, a successor to Muhammad, in the way you see Muhammad today, in the way Muslims see Muhammad today, could not have existed based on archaeological information that we have access to today from Hijazi
You're
heartland.
saying the story about Umar ibn Khattab going to Jerusalem and he receiving the key for the city for the city. That's like a fancy story.
Yeah, what I can say,
You saying Amr ibn al-As who came to Egypt and he's kicked out
I'm
the
not
Roman
talk-
from Egypt and he brought the priest back to his position.
I'm not talking about later
Doesn't exist.
sources. I'm not talking about later
asking you
sources.
all these historical people
I'm
that-
talking about
So
Sahabas.
you're telling me
I'm talking about Sahabas.
who went to Habasha to meet the king of Habasha to meet him.
Which king? Which Sahaba do you have in mind? And what source are you using? This is where you need to
It's
provide
Arabic
evidence.
resources, Arabic resources.
You need to. Certainly.
It's
Please
Arabic
bring,
resources.
next time when you are here, please bring these resources.
If I
Please do
say
your
something-
homework.
If I say something exists, it's your job to say it doesn't.
No. It's not. Look, you are a Muslim. And so, when you have chosen to follow a religion, you better make sure that you have historical verification.
Now, first of all,
And that is where
No, no,
I'm
no, no,
asking
no,
you.
no, no, no.
I'm
First of
asking
all-
you.
First of all, you need to show me what in that book that doesn't make sense. When then I start questioning,
There
what
is
you're
plenty.
talking about.
There is plenty in the Quran which are obscene. Go on. Sorry.
I'll give you a point which is a scientific proof from the Quran. God says he is not shy to give an example.
Sure. Yeah. Great. But great catching up. Lovely speaking to you. God's blessings.
He said, God is not shy to give an example of a mosquito and what's on top of it.
Give a what? Give an example.
It's a surah.
Yeah.
Surah in the Quran. It says, God is not shy to give an example of a mosquito and what's on top of it.
And what on top?
What's on top of a mosquito?
Okay.
Now, what is on top of a mosquito? When did they figure this out?
When did they first figure it out?
In the 14th century.
Who told you that?
I am 100% sure.
Who told you? What's your source?
It's in the Quran.
What source?
Okay, I'll give you.
What source are you using? No, explain to me the whole stuff.
No, I will give you the verse in Arabic. Do you want me to tell
Please.
you in Arabic?
Are you
I'm listening.
good? Okay. So once you show that, I'd like to know the historical backdrop of the Quran. That is what I care about.
Okay.
So Muhammad of the Quran, Muhammad of Islam. Who is Muhammad of Islam?
No, don't go off point.
Who is Muhammad of Islam? A person who you respect a lot.
Yeah, of course.
A person who you think was a prophet.
He is the messenger of God.
Yeah, you think he is the messenger of God.
If he
You
wasn't, you can't explain this surah.
no, that's
No,
not the point.
You can't explain it.
What is the evidence? What is the evidence for the existence? For the existence?
Because what's on top of the mosquito? What's on top of it? You know what's on top of it? It's a parasite that a human eye can't see. It's not even possible.
Show me.
Okay, I will
Show me from the Quran about the parasite, please.
It won't say the parasite, but
No. Please show me what it says.
Okay.
So it may say all sorts of stuff, and you are going to call it a parasite.
Just one second.
What's your name, by the way?
Abdullah.
Abdullah. Good. Are you going? Can I have the English translation, please? Which surah is that? Hey, Kathy, how are you doing? Lovely to see you. Which surah do you have in mind? Sure. Which surah is that?
Let me ask.
Sure, yeah,
the
please.
Sheikh.
Okay, yeah, sure. Ask him. What's the time today? Are we going to wrap up soon? What's the time? Okay, what's the time? Okay, about to be 5. Okay, we'll wrap up soon.